Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bootcast. This is Series 2, and today joining me from the UK is Harrison Ward, who's also known as...
Fellfoodie. I am Fellfoodie.
Fellfoodie on Instagram. So, Harrison, thanks for joining us on the Bootcast. And can you tell us a bit about yourself, just to introduce who you are and a little bit about Fellfoodie?
Yeah, of course, sir. Yeah, so I'm based in the Lake District in England, so... I'm 28. I'm sort of an avid sort of lover of the fells, sort of hiking side of things, and also a lover of cooking. So, hence the sort of name has come about there. So, in this part of the world, we call the hills fells, derived from the term fjall, I think, from Scandinavia. And then the foodie side, I suppose, speaks for itself. So, I've always loved the cooking element. Recently, like the hiking, and started merging the two of late, and really getting into this outdoor cooking and hiking sort of adventures, really.
Brilliant. So are you doing that on your own or with anyone else, or is this kind of your baby now?
It's mainly a solo thing, yeah. I mean, it just sort of started off initially, I guess, just for me to put pictures of my dinner on something, really, to stop my Facebook friends. And it started there, and then it sort of took off a little bit. And generally, it's solo trips out, but I've got a few friends now who generally always want to come along, and especially with the food elements, there's always an endless list of people who want to join me on these hikes now to get fed as well, I think. So, but generally just me, but anyone's always welcome in the hills.
Brilliant. And is your background in food and being a chef or anything, or?
No, not at all, really. No, I'm all completely self-taught. So it's been something sort of from quite a young age, with my grandmother initially sort of taking in there, baking that sort of way from 10, 11, 12. In that sort of way. I did work in hospitality for a while. I was in sort of behind the bar. I had little spells in the kitchen, but was never trained that way and never sort of pursuing that sort of avenue as a career. So it's very much just been a passion-based thing. So
cool. So whereabouts are you based now then?
So I'm now in Ambleside in the Lake District in England. So not too far from where I'm actually from. I'm from Carlisle originally, so on the border of Scotland. So I had a spell in York for a good sort of 7-8 years, and then found myself coming back to Cumbria, and then found myself in the Lake District. So it wasn't really planned at first. I mean, this wasn't sort of what I was into, the hiking and things, but sort of worked out that way, and here we are.
Cool. Just on lakes, and I suppose on your Instagram bio, I see member of Hiking the Lakes. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just a little collective of a few of us. Some friends I've all met through Instagram, really. We're all from sort of various parts of the UK. I guess I'm based in the Lakes. There's one chap who moved up from London, one in Birmingham, and there's two girls, Jess, both called Jess, one in Yorkshire and one in Lancashire. And we all sort of met through collective groups, collective meetings in the Lakes, and then took over this page, really. It's a picture sharing page, essentially, of pictures of the Lake District, showing, I guess, other people's captures and other people's adventures in this beautiful part of the world. So It's just a little together, yeah. So it's nice to be part of.
Nice. It's getting a good following now, 32,000 followers at the moment.
Yeah, people seem to be quite interested, yeah. I think, again, the Lake District as a whole, it's a busy place. A lot of people know it. It's sort of the jewel of England, as they say, don't they? So during tourist season, it's a difficult place to get around for us locals. But enjoying the page. So long may it continue.
Nice. Best of luck with it. The other thing on your bio, then, you're an ambassador for BioLite. What's BioLite?
So BioLite is the people who make the camping stove I use. So all the cooking I do outdoors, it's not sort of base level camping. I tend to take my camping stove out into the mountains, whether it be wild camping or just on a day hike, and cook what I like to think is more restaurant style meals, all just on a camping stove with minimal equipment. So the BioLite is the first stove I got. I've got two stoves now. I've actually got a gas stove and the BioLite, but it's a completely fueled by wood or pellets burning stove. It also has a probe in it that charges via thermoelectric charging, which charges a battery for it as well, which runs an adjustable fan. So it's almost like an adjustable real fire in a camping stove setup. So yeah, it's a little startup in Brooklyn in America initially. Someone recommended it to me. I got it from there. Shared a lot of posts on. Really enjoy the fact it's real fire you're cooking on, very authentic, very sort of ancestral. And they caught wind of the posts I was doing and asked me to be an ambassador for the company. So
Nice.
Yeah, no
Cool.
brainer.
It looks cool. Yeah. So anyone that's watching or listening, check that out. BioLite. Okay, Harrison. So I suppose hiking and food are your passions. Tell me about the 6th of June, 2016.
Okay, yeah. So the 6th of June, 2016 is quite a sort of a key date in my life, I guess. It's a big date of where I sort of started this turnaround, if you like. Life was quite different before. As I said briefly, I mentioned I wasn't really into the hiking side of things. I was living in New York at the time, but the 6th of June basically is the date that it all changed, and sort of I found the steps happening to sort of come to this part of the world, and the steps in sort of my personal life. So I'd always sort of been quite a sufferer of sort of depression and bordering on sort of even suicidal thoughts at one point. Throughout sort of puberty, throughout my teenage years. And it wasn't until I got to sort of 18 and stuff where I started working more in the hospitality industry, as I mentioned, behind the bar, that I discovered sort of a love at first for alcohol and those sort of avenues. So I was quite a sociable person. I quite enjoyed being out. I quite enjoyed sort of talking with the punters there. And I was always sort of, despite the sort of afflictions I had, always quite the extrovert anyway, quite talker and things, but quickly fell into this sort of unhealthier lifestyle, I guess, and that sort of escalated. So initially it began, I guess it was sort of something that maybe the depression side of things, I was trying to sort of silence these thoughts, if you like, and alcohol sort of became that vice initially that sort of cleared the mind, sedated the mind, and a bit of an escape. So initially sort of being invited into my life due to this depression, thinking it was more of a saviour, it ended up becoming a bit of a poison. As time went on. I then moved to university in New York, and that's where things really started to snowball, really. I moved away for the first time, sort of independent living. Again, I found a job in that hospitality trade. And before long, sort of alcohol was really becoming my priority. I mean, you're sort of in that student scene, I guess, as well, which is quite, I guess, everyone's quite into that sort of fresher lifestyle, I guess, being out and about all the time. It's quite the norm to be out, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 18 days on the trot. But once that sort of died down for me, the studies I'd gone for, and I guess the work I was also there for, quickly fell by the wayside. And before long, I mean, I was hitting sort of units where I'd been quite heavy drinking before I went, but after not touching it all at 18, this sort of medicinal drinking, if you like, as I called it at the time, to sort of sedate my own mind, to try and put a positive front, was hitting the likes of 20 plus pints a day sort of thing by this point.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was putting some fair units down, and I'd taken up smoking at this point as well. So I'd again not touched smoking at all, not touched cigarettes at all at this time, and so I was smoking full time now, 20 to 40 a day as well, depending on how heavy those were, and then sort of that heavily throughout that time. And this is something that continued throughout my time in New York, for all the time I was there. So again, it was 2010, I think I moved there. Again, it wasn't until this point in sort of 2016 that things started to turn around.
Okay, so it's quite a long period of time living that kind of lifestyle.
Yes, it was a very unhealthy time, really. Again, even sort of, I wasn't very into my fitness at all when I first went there. But I was certainly fitter than I was during this stage in New York, because as well as the sort of consumption I was under with alcohol, the smoking side, I'd also was eating very unhealthily, became very lethargic. So I actually put a lot of weight on as well. I mean, I'd gone to university about 15 stone. Within about 3 years, I was now touching about 22 stone plus. Really, so again, big figures of alcohol, unhealthy with the smoking, and not doing any sort of exercise whatsoever. So yeah, it was a difficult point in my life, really. I maintained a job throughout this. The university did fall by the wayside in the end with the other priorities, but I was very much sort of what you call, I suppose, a highly functioning alcoholic at the time I was. I mean, I did fall into that sort of level, although I didn't see it for myself at the time. And it was very much only a year before that sort of date where I'd actually... I'd met a girlfriend in New York, surprisingly, with all these afflictions and these very traits I had going for me at the time. But and that sort of began to change things, I guess. I mean, initially I didn't hide the life I was leading. I did hide the life I was leading. I was living sort of two lives, if you like, the life with alcohol and the life with her. The two occasionally mixed with sort of quite sort of catastrophic sort of moments, but was generally hidden away. So we worked quite different hours. I was in hospitality trade. I was in management by this time, so I was, I guess, working night shifts and weekends, where she was more 9 to 5 based. So the books didn't quite always align. So there was a chance to sort of get this other life in as I was doing. And although there's some ultimatums along the way, it ultimately took sort of me becoming someone I'm not with this sort of drink, really, and acting unfaithfully in the end, which brought that relationship to an end. But it was at this point, really, that as well as realising I'd become someone I'd not and lost something that I had really loved at the time, that I came to terms with how deep I'd fallen and the fact I'd become an alcoholic. So this date was the 6th of June, 2016. And really, it was like a complete right turn in my life. Everything sort of changed. I mean, initially, obviously, it's quite a big realisation. I mean, my world just sort of dropped from beneath me. I was sort of whisked off initially to my auntie's house, who lived just outside York, for a week there. And it was almost a bit like a sort of a rehab stage in my life, I guess. I mean, I've been in for 6 years. I was very much kid in a sweet shop. I was working that trade. Coming from sort of a smaller city or even country lifestyle before, now being in a city like York, there was a lot more access to bars, to pubs, clubs going out there. Again, I was independent living, so you just did what you liked. And I was tucked away again to my auntie's point there, and I'd vowed from this moment to just completely just cut this out of my life, cut this alcohol, cut this cigarettes, change this world. I mean, initially, I'm not going to lie, it was probably to try and win my ex-girlfriend back. That sort of stage. These moments were to try and win around again, but that wasn't to be. But I quickly sort of threw myself into fitness during this time. So again, picture that sort of over 22 stone man smoking sort of every day. You know, I wasn't the sort of person who could run down the street. You know, I couldn't run a bath. I mean, it sort of, I had to use what was to hand of me, I guess. I mean, at my auntie's house, she lives in the Yorkshire Wolds, outside York, and that first week I was there, I threw myself sort of into it by, at first, finding her bicycle in the garage, which was a lady's traditional bike with a lady frame, basket on the front and the bells, taking off into the Wolds, sort of cycling around. So again, looking dreadful. I was going through all these DTs, my head's all over the place. I'm blowing out my arse anyway because I'm so unfit, and it must have looked quite the sight, really. But this sort of began the journey, I suppose, heading on. So we got that cycling then sort of became joining the gym in that first week. And on returning to York after that first week, I decided that I had to remove myself from this environment. So I told them about my work. I wasn't going to come back. I had to leave. I couldn't become this new person in that environment. I left my house that I was living in. Obviously, I'd already lost my girlfriend at that point, and I just left this city. I mean, I'd lived there for 6-7 years. I mean, I'd met a lot of people, you know, social environment as well. So you're quite a city centre pub as well. So I knew a lot of faces around there, and I just turned around the next day and I was gone. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I had to leave. I thought, if my life's going to change this way, I want it to change. Again, initially fighting back for that previous relationship. But as time went on, realising this was more for me, that I had to get out of that situation. So that was a big moment. And I returned back to Cumbria, sort of to my roots. And the week sort of went on from there. So I mean, again, I'd gone back to this area and I joined the gym. I wasn't in the lakes by this point, but one of my best friends actually, Ryan, had come and landed on my doorstep sort of quite early in coming back, because I was quite open with sort of what had happened on the Facebook at first. I didn't have an Instagram account or anything then. But it was the one way I was supposed to get it out to the masses straight away of why I've left York, or lots of old school friends or estranged friends from my home area what had gone on, why I'd suddenly left York, you know, or overnight, essentially. So Ryan had caught wind of this, and he turned up on my doorstep, sort of in the first week of being there, and he said we were going off for a walk. Now, again, I've got into the sort of the cycling a little bit again now. I've got back to the gym, but I'm not really on this road to fitness at all. So for me, he said we're going for a walk. I'd maybe presumed a walk to the woods or a walk around the local town, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I was stood there. I just gathered to hand what I had. So I had sort of a woolly jumper from Next, if you like, a pair of swim shorts, just white socks and a pair of trainers that I put on. So I wasn't really dressed for what was to come. Anyway, he took one look at me and said, "We're going hiking in the lakes. You can't be wearing that." So again, I'm a bit clueless. I don't know what I'm doing. So we head off down the road anyway, down there from Carlisle into the lakes, and he pulls off at a local outdoor store and says, "Right, we're going to get you a pair of boots." So he takes me to the boots section, grabs a pair of boots, pops them on the counter, and just these boots for me. So these are on me. Again, a big moment there, sort of thing. It's not something. I was quite penniless at this time as well. I had to come back from Europe again. I paid my rent at this house. I'd left my job. Obviously, a lot of the rest of my cash had all gone down my neck. The consumption I was doing on a daily basis. I mean, it's an expensive hobby to keep. So that was a real sort of show of friendship, really, and a show of things to come. So we left off from that outdoor store, carried on down the road, and got to the base of quite a big sort of fell mountain in the Lake District, Blencathra, just outside Keswick. You might have heard of it. One of the 214 Wainwrights in the Lake District. Quite a big one. So for me, having no background to this whatsoever, again, still very unfit, still struggling with sort of withdrawal symptoms from the cigarettes, from the alcohol. Yeah. My head, heart's all over the place. We began plodding up this mountain. So I didn't really know what to expect. And I mean, it really just sort of was a huge struggle getting up there. I mean, I can remember quite vividly sort of the amount of stops we were taking, the amount of water stops and stuff. And I was still sort of completely a broken man at this point when I'm almost getting physically dragged up this mountain. And a massive change from what was only 2 weeks prior to maybe sort of head on the bar, completely inebriated. But this began sort of a new sort of journey. So we'd already left this sort of very different life. I'd left the city. I'd sort of built this lifestyle up, this unhealthy lifestyle, and come back to an area where I'd always had this on my doorstep, the Lake District, but I'd never really embraced it. I was always someone who'd speak highly of it in terms of it being what a lovely place to be. Oh yeah, I'm from Cumbria and I've got the Lake District. But the closest I came to sort of these mountains was probably a coffee shop down the road in Keswick. It was. I wasn't climbing these hills at all, but we did this first from Blencathra, and when we got there, we got to the top, and I remember it was completely covered in cloud at the time. Couldn't see a thing. But before I could even really take it in, sort of Ryan turned to me and he just said, "Helvellyn next," which is another big hill, so another Wainwright just away. So Helvellyn next week, and I can't even really remember if I answered the question or not. But the whole sort of next week, there we are again at the base of this other mountain. Helvellyn's at 950 meters, so again fairly sizable. And this is only my second one again, so this is week 2. Back in Cumbria, week 3, sort of off the facts in this new lifestyle. So again, but it was a glorious day going up Helvellyn. It was stunning, really, really, really sort of the sun was blaring, blue skies all around, and again set off for this march up this mountainside, and quite a steep ascent from the side we took it from, from Fellfoodie, which is really one of my favourite walks now, but quite the altitude you gain in such a short space of time, I think, is quite unrivaled in this area. So it's quite broad. It's like a staircase right to the top.
Right.
So again, there we go. We head again, and many stops and many struggles, and just staring at my boots all the way to the top, pretty much. And we get to the top, reach the trig point, and the view sort of from the top just really sort of ignited something in me, sort of a new sort of spark. And you were looking down at sort of the tarn below, red tarn it is. And there's 2 quite famous ridges on Helvellyn as well. So you've got Striding Edge and Squirrel Edge. And you're looking over sort of Ullswater and then off to the Pennines in the far east. And just looking at that sort of moment then, climbing this mountain at the time, I mean, it really sort of ignited like a new passion for me, a new sort of addiction, if you like. And it was that moment that I really started to get into this sort of hiking and the other element of fitness. So again, I already mentioned the gym I was doing, but this hiking was a new thing altogether. And it started to become a sort of a new vice, if you like. And as the weeks went on, more and more mountains were done week in, week out. And then I actually found work in the Lake District in the end. So ended up relocating here and just really letting sort of life take its role at the time, just take me where it was going, sort of let the journey sort of move where it was. And once I found myself in the lakes, this became sort of, again, a daily hobby, like the drinking had, like the smoking had. I was out in these fells.
Yeah.
And a few months after sort of not being able to scale any of these before, not being able to scale sort of even the smallest hill, not being able to run a bath, we're taken to running up these hills, sort of, and we're taken to go donning boots and now donning trainers, and sort of the routes we were doing sort of at first, we're now having to stab at sort of heading up in the train sort of thing, and a complete sort of turnaround really from what it was before, and a real different life again, a right turn, as I mentioned.
Brilliant.
And,
when you did the first climb, before you did it or as you were doing it, did it kind of resonate with your own journey of addiction and of the journey ahead that you would have? Did it resonate? Like, it was your first time doing this mountain, you're looking up saying, fuck. That kind of way.
Exactly that, yeah. I'm sure that was said a few times, to be fair, but I don't think initially it did. Not the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, my head was that clouded at the time. I think it was just another obstacle in the way. It was just something else to push forward. Again, my focus was very different then, I guess. I still wasn't sure if I was heading back to York, if I was going to rekindle this relationship or what was going on. Even if it was going to fall back into the sort of the drinking lifestyle I was in. It was all quite new, but certainly as more and more climbs went on, more and more hills came on, there was certainly a similarity, I guess, in the journey I was taking and the climb of these hills. So it became, if you like, a physical manifestation of the sort of mental climb, the mental sort of hike I was doing in my own life. So with these objects, trying to reach the top or reach these different sort of pinnacle points to move on to the next level. Certainly it could appeal to both scenes.
Brilliant. And just when you mentioned that, so I know just from doing adventure races and hikes and stuff that you do come across hard points, physically and mentally. So how do you deal with the mental side of a struggle on a hike? So
that's half the love of it for me, I think, is I mean, as much as I love the views, I mean, they're not always guaranteed, of course, especially, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, in Ireland, as much as we are on the lakes, get a nice view from these summits. But the challenge is half the part for me, I think, that sort of getting to the top, that sense of achievement is always something that keeps me going. Now, again, I suppose in the early days, it was maybe a different sort of challenge I was heading for, a different sort of change more personally. But when you're just trying to conquer these individual sort of peaks or summits, I don't know, the struggle sort of point, I guess, you can always bring yourself back to where you were initially. I mean, those initial struggles I was in, I mean, I think going through all those sort of afflictions at the time, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's still elements of those that can sort of still, but at times, I mean, obviously I'm quite stable with the alcohol side of things now. I haven't smoked since, we're now over 3.5 years from that point now, so it's quite
that's good.
Quite a time. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, so not a drop since then, not a smoke, but remembering those times, I guess, and what I was in, so having all those afflictions at the time, those first sort of initial climbs, or battling all that at the same time, it puts it into perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
The struggles into perspective. So, again, it's just putting that one foot in front of the other, I guess, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Keep heading towards that summit point, and I don't know, an element of trust as well. Sometimes when you get trust in yourself or trust in sort of, I don't know, almost the destiny of it, if you like. So they're heading to that summit, that's
good. That's a thing a lot of people don't believe in themselves or trust that they can do stuff, and that puts them off even beginning, you know. So
Completely.
when you're on the mountain and you have to trust in yourself, that's a strong trait to have, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think again, sort of in terms of just knowing how soon things can change, or how different life can be before. You know, how these would have been some of these smaller fells now. What I consider would have been were my mountains, were my Everest at the time. You know, heading there sort of silly. But it all comes into perspective, I guess, as you get fitter that sort of way, or get more experience in these mountains, and it becomes bigger and bigger challenges. And remembering the struggles you had on those, maybe the smaller peaks or the smaller distances you were doing, perhaps, or it builds that fitness over time. So again, it's not forgetting where you've come from, I guess, is how to get by those struggles, both physically in the climb and mentally.
Brilliant. What's been the toughest physical challenge then to date?
Toughest physical challenge, I would say, would be running a marathon, which is what I did actually. So from those stages, again, like I said, not being able to run a bath, you know, never ran life. I'd only ever ran sort of after a ball, if you like, whether, you know, football, rugby, hockey sort of thing, as a kid. So again, from that 6th of June date, not sort of ran at all at that point. And after sort of a month, again, I got forced into it by a friend initially. For, well, after you're doing this sort of the hiking aside, do you fancy coming out for a run? And I was like, well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not. I'm never going to have an interest in that. You've got to have a different sort of mindset. But it really took to that. And again, I think it was the first one I did was maybe just 2 kilometers around this tarn. And, you know, I think I'd stopped about 4 or 5 times going around there, really struggled with that. And the week sort of went on, we kept pushing those on. And then we're sort of reaching moments like the 5Ks, and then sort of 3 months down the line, or 10K distances. And again, this was all at that heavy weight as well at the time. So over that 22 stone plus, which throughout this time now, obviously I've lost that weight as well for this fitness journey as well, and through this healthier lifestyle. So we're back down to more sort of the sort of 16 level now. So it was almost a 7 stone loss at its highest it was. I've got up a bit since. hopefully that's more some muscle at the gym.
Muscle mass.
Yeah, exactly, perhaps so. But from that 6th of June though, it sort of went on to about November. The same friend Ryan who taken me in these mountains suggested doing a marathon. And at first, I don't think I gave him a straight answer initially. I wasn't keen on the idea. I mean, we got to sort of 15-mile distances maybe then, but 26 still seemed a long way off 15 miles, you say. But anyway, a couple of weeks later, we were convinced, we were signed up. And when it came to the date, which was in May, so only 11 months after this turnaround date, was the start of this race for this marathon. So we run 26 miles, which if you'd have told me that 12 months prior, I'd laughed you out of the pub. I would have at the time. Completely different.
It's amazing when you do have that turning point, isn't it? Like,
exactly. But I mean, that really felt like the real redemption moment as well, sort of finishing that marathon, that complete sort of polar opposite to the world I was living before. Now, don't get me wrong, I've not signed up for any since, but but that was certainly one that will live long in the memory, I think. So
brilliant, well done.
The marathon,
There's 2 quotes I just want to bring up here. I saw on your Instagram today. I already know what giving up feels like. I want to find out what happens if I don't.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly as I mentioned. I think when you mentioned the struggle on those mountains, I mean, I've already had that rock bottom stage in my life. You know, I mean, heading back before that sort of 6th of June stage, you know, there was moments prior to that, sort of moments a few years prior, where this sort of secret life I was living, I guess, this sort of alcohol fueled world I found myself in. Again, that sort of sedation for the sort of my mindset at the time, you know, silencing these sort of self-limiting thoughts and this sort of insecurities, and they really came to a head at one point. I mean, really sort of hitting rock bottom completely. Sort of after sort of my 21st birthday, sort of had a few friends around in New York, sort of thing, and when sort of I was quite alone in this city at the time, actually, just alone with sort of my own sort of mental sort of facets, really, completely. And once they sort of left the city, it quickly sort of dawned on me sort of where I was again and the life I was in, and I didn't really want to be here anymore. I wanted to sort of just end and sort of jump off this world completely, just sort of leave and get out. And to hit to sort of moments like that, which again was another sort of 4 years before having that actual turning point. I've had those rock bottom moments, you know what I mean? So so again, you come to those struggles, it's remembering where you've come from and knowing what it took to get past those. So perhaps these smaller moments or smaller obstacles or smaller blocks in life can be put in perspective when you look at how far maybe what you've already overcome. So I think that's why that quote sort of resonates with me.
Yeah, it's a good quote. Brilliant. And the second one then, before we kind of wrap it up, the best apology is changed behavior. Is that one of your own or? No,
again, it's one I found in the sort of early stages of sort of the sobriety journey and the turnaround. I mean, a lot of these quotes I sort of had, and I was watching sort of YouTube documentaries of people who got sober. I'm just looking for advice any way you could, really, or moments of inspiration myself. And that was one, again, that I suppose really hit hard at the time due to the reasons in why the big switch in my life had come about. Obviously, again, probably for a good sort of 3 to 6 months after that sort of stage, maybe even longer, I was still sort of pining for that form of love, if you like, and to prove that this change in behaviour, this change in lifestyle was a bigger show of an apology than the words could be. You know, I mean, you can say sorry 1,000 times, but physically showing action of changing was
proper change.
Well, exactly, was a much harder thing to achieve. So, I mean, it didn't end up that way. And as time went on, obviously, I came to realise myself that this wasn't obviously for getting somebody else back or for finding that old life again where I was. It was for me personally, for me moving forward. So, but I still think that sort of changed behaviour, going on and going forward again, friends with family that stuck by through those moments, even sort of my ex, if she, looking back, if I ever saw any of these moments, then that's that continued apology. I think living this new life now, the fact that there was a lot of pain at the time, there was maybe some deceit, there was moments where I'd let a lot of people down, but hopefully the show now, this complete change, this new life I'm on, this was all an investment to get to where I am now. So that apology in my life I'm living now is hopefully warranted and accepted.
Brilliant. Harrison, it's been brilliant chatting to you, and certainly an inspiration for anybody who's maybe going through mental struggles or who's getting into the outdoors and hiking or making any kind of a life change. So keep it up. Keep up the good work. And if anyone wants to follow your journey then on Instagram, how can they reach out and get in touch, show their support?
Yeah, so I'm on there sort of, again, we mentioned the cooking side of things before and the hiking, the wild camping. So I'm covering all that on there as well. And I do sort of share the sort of mental health and sobriety journey on top of that. So you can find it all on my Instagram channel at Fellfoodie. Again, Facebook, YouTube, all things like that. But yeah, thanks very much for having me on, Eugene. It's been a pleasure to share the story.
No problem. Thanks a million, Harrison Ward. Best of luck, and hopefully you meet you someday.
Thank you, sir, and you.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.